I messed up and had to go in and clean the eyes of my massive bull ant queen. And here's why. This is Bessie, my massive bull ant queen, and right next to her, her first baby worker named Pop. Both Bessie and Pop are in great danger because I've recently discovered they've been hit by mites. Now, people were quick to notice the mites, but I thought they were simply grain mites, meaning mites that lived among the trash pile of the colony and were not a danger to the colony itself. The grain mites had lived among the colony for a few weeks without any issues, but as time went on, I noticed that the mites were not grain mites. No, they were parasitic mites sitting on the eyes of Bessie. This couldn't get any worse, as I've already had problems with parasitic mites in the past. And that story didn't end well. So when I saw that these weren't the mites I expected, I knew I had to act fast. Because left untreated, this colony could be dead in weeks. And my favorite and beloved bull ant colony would be gone forever. So the plan was simple. Open the setup and get Bessie and Pop out of it. But we also needed to get the precious larvae out. These larvae are the next generation of worker ants, and if these die, months of precious care will be gone. So I set up a container where I could keep Bessie and Pop safe. I opened the lid, and it wasn't long before Bessie came running out to see what was going on. I grabbed her and put her in the container. Now, it's never funny to go in and pick up a queen, and it's even worse when it's a massive, stinging, aggressive bull ant queen. Luckily, I had ant handling tweezers, and I knew I wouldn't hurt her by picking her up. It didn't take long before Pop also came running out. I picked her up and also put her in the same container. Now, with both the queen and worker gone, I could safely open the nest and get the precious larvae out. To make sure Bessie and Pop wouldn't mistakenly hurt the larvae, I put them in a separate container. And with that, the colony was now completely disassembled, and I could go in and clean the nest. Now, this setup worked alright, but the outworld wasn't ideal. But the nest did work wonders. So my plan was to cut the setup in half and get the outworld away and reuse the nest. Once cut in half, I could start assembling the new setup. I temporarily placed the outworld in a bigger tank and started adding a little bit of sand. Once I was satisfied, I swapped the outworld with the nest. The nest had now been cleaned and refilled with some new sand. And once I was satisfied with the new look, it was time to add in the larvae. Now, these larvae are extremely fragile, so once more the ant handling tweezers really helped me out a lot right here. These larvae are also still infected by the mites, but my plan was to simply starve the mites and not let them reproduce. So I added the larvae into the nest, and then it was time to see if I could clean the mites off Pop, the bull ant worker. I tried to hold her down gently and wipe a bit of wet cotton on her eyes. Now, most of the mites were located on the other eye, but as you can see, it went very wrong and the worker just bit the cotton. Perhaps I got some of the mites that were sitting on her mandibles, but all in all, I didn't feel I succeeded. I put her in the setup, and then it was time to take Bessie, the massive bull ant queen. I used a different pair of tweezers, but I ended with the same result. I felt I did more harm to the queen than saving her from the mites. So I just put her in the setup as well. It didn't take long before both Pop and Bessie found their nest again. And immediately they started rearranging the larvae back to where they were meant to be. The colony had now been placed in a new setup, and all I could do was hope that the mites would have a harder time surviving in this new type. The big differences are I can now go in and easily clean the setup to make sure that there isn't any rotting food inside. I also decided to give them a little dish with water so they could drink from, instead of putting water on the side walls. Both these things would massively help prevent the mites from reproducing. Now, the colony itself is doing really well despite the mites. The larvae pile looks very healthy with 9 larvae currently growing. To make sure all 9 larvae survive, I feed them every day, because sometimes the weaker larvae may not get fed. Now, until the larvae are moving into the next stage where they will spin their cocoon and build a little home around them, I can't safely starve the colony. The safest way to get rid of the mites would be to starve the colony, but this would likely kill the larvae. Meaning I could either sacrifice the larvae and lose months of work, or hope the colony would manage a little while longer. But only time will tell what will happen to our young bull ant colony. And if you want to find out, subscribe for more.